What's up, everyone, and welcome to Save the Game Media's review, discussion, and spoiler cast of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am your host, Kevin, and I am joined by two of the lovely co-hosts from around Save the Game Media. First, we got IGN's own Sam Heaney. I slur my words sometimes, guys.
IG owns.
IG owns. He owns you now. How you doing, Sam?
I'm good. Nice to record something with you guys where you can actually see me properly. It's a nice shake up to the formula.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Doing well.
I assume you have to turn the lights off and then get the LEDs going. Really?
Yeah. Make it feel a bit more normal.
Well, we're going to talk all about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Also joined by Anime Cast. Kyle, how you doing?
I thought we renamed that.
Oh, we haven't talked about that yet, Kyle. That's not public information.
Spoilers. Yeah, well, whatever. I forget. What was the question?
How are you doing? Jesus, it's 12:30.
Oh, you know.
He's suffering from cellular degradation.
Yep.
Kevin.
Yep.
He's not much of a soldier, mind you.
It's rough. Rough out here.
All right. Well, as I said, this is the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and spoiler cast. The game came out about 3 weeks ago. I would say we have all beaten the game. Some of us put a little more time into it than others, but we'll have our thoughts. So I want to go over just initial impressions, like what are our overall thoughts of the game. It is full spoilers right off the bat, so you can say whatever you want. We will dive into more of the key story points as we go on. But Sam, I'm going to start with you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you played it, I believe, for IGN, right?
I did. Indeed.
Yes. Have you played the original Final Fantasy VII?
Outside of remake, no. I have very, very, very vague memories of watching my dad play the original FF7 on PS1 back in the day when I was very young. But no real cognizant recollection. It's just vague images. And I did try, I've said many times, I did try Final Fantasy VII Remake not long after it came out, and it just didn't click with me. I tried again relatively recently, not directly in the lead up to Rebirth, but just over a year and a bit ago, a year and a few months. Still didn't click with me. Got about halfway through, and I just a project came in or another game came out and it just sort of pulled me away, and I haven't really longed to go back. So I think my opinion is going to be a very interesting one because I'm going in relatively blind to Rebirth outside of knowing a few key plot details for Final Fantasy VII in general. But that is my lineage. Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, before we get your overall thoughts, Kyle, what is your history with Final Fantasy VII? I think you and me probably have the same history with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. I mean, it's a seminal JRPG. And I was gonna ask the same question. I didn't know if Sam had played it or not. I mean, I think anyone who's a fan of the original would probably be a fan of this. I like the original, so I like this. But
I feel, and I'll just say this, and then we can throw it back to Sam for overall thoughts. I think Rebirth is actually almost a more faithful game than Remake, and that's weird to say because I expected way more changes in the story to this, but we'll talk about the major ones. But Sam, not finishing Remake, you're jumping into Rebirth. How did you find the game overall, gameplay wise, story wise?
Did you have any idea what was going on?
Yeah, what's your feelings about Final Fantasy Rebirth?
I did have an idea of what was going on. I didn't. I said I was going to, but I didn't watch like proper recap videos. I probably should have done my due diligence, but there was some scuttlebutt going on that the developers were saying that they are trying to make Rebirth as accessible as possible, even if you haven't played Remake. I do highly encourage people to play Remake, regardless. But no, I followed it for the most part. There was surely some nuances and character moments that maybe flew over my head that were potentially callbacks, or seminal moments from the original game. But regardless, I still had a relatively complete and sort of comprehensive experience, I think. Do you want general thoughts?
Yeah. Why don't you hit me with your
Wait,
general? Oh, we got something to say, Kyle.
Have you played Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion?
No, I have not.
Yeah, okay. Do you know who Zach is?
Very, very tangentially.
Okay.
I know the fundamentals, which I think realistically is the only thing I need to know.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, like I understand where he was standing off against all of the Shinra soldiers, and the context of that, and why the deviations are happening in Remake and Rebirth. I understand that on a base level. Yeah, I really liked the game. I can't say that I loved it. I think I don't want to step on your toes potentially, Kevin, from what you said, but I do find some of the open world stuff a little bit destructive in terms of pacing for the game. And that's not overly a bad thing, because most of the open world stuff was pretty compelling to do. I think just in terms of overall narrative, I felt I would make a good amount of story progress, and then it would just dive off the edge of a cliff for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. And then you can obviously mainline your way through it, but I think that the game encourages you to do everything as you go. And yeah, I think also like a general sentiment that I've heard is that as part of the main golden path, I understand why they did it, but they shoehorn practically every mini game into the main story, and I'm not a big fan of that. I understand that it's trying to like make sure you know that there are all of these things to do, but again, I don't think that is super helpful in terms of pacing. Overall, the combat I liked. It clicked more with me than remakes did, and I think that there's just because there's added layers of versatility. I think the sort of team up moves that they allow you to do, the limit breaks and stuff are flashier and have cooler animations, and there's cool combos that you can kind of experiment with. I'm still not a massive fan, even though it is sort of like semi turn-based, semi real time. It's sort of like a mix. I didn't like it in Remake. I still don't love it here, but I enjoyed it more. And story, I would agree with you, weirdly. Obviously, I don't know everything, but it's strange. I was expecting much wilder deviations. And they played it pretty close to the chest overall, as far as I can gather.
Yeah.
Which is odd. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just strange, considering what I have heard of Remake, as you suggested, deviates relatively heavily. So yeah, I liked it. I can't say I love it, though. I think it's worthy of the praise, a good sequel, but yeah, there are some issues that I think detracted from the overall experience.
I would, if you don't mind me jumping in, Kyle, before we go to you, I would say, and these are some of my thoughts, that I agree about the mini games. There are far too many of them forced upon you, and some of them are fun. Like Queen's Blood is awesome. I love Queen's Blood. I think that's like, I'm not normally the card guy in these types of games, but Queen's Blood is genuinely one of the best I've played. And like, if they gave me a mobile version of Queen's Blood, I would play that like daily. I'd sit there and just, oh yeah, that's really good. I think a lot of my issues with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's open world system is that it's a little too Ubisoft like for my blood.
Mm,
I did some of that. There were certain regions I did more, like Coral and Nibble regions. I did a lot of things in those regions. And that came down to the chocobos. Like I thought the traversal in those areas was much better than some of the early starting areas. So I was having much more fun. Like, oh, there's a tower over there. I might as well grab that. Oh, the live stream. I'm just gonna knock. Like I did more live streams than anything else in this game for the open world activities. To be honest with you, but as I was gonna say, my point was my problem is I played Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth earlier this year, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth does a lot of what Rebirth is trying to do, but I think it nails it a lot better in terms of mini games, even doing mini games like as part of the story. I think the pacing is a little better. I love by the end of Rebirth, I loved it. Like I think where we end and all the cinematics and the storyline, I love it. But I will say, I don't think there's much story to this game until like chapter 7. Like you're over halfway done in the game and nothing has really happened. Like that whole Costa del Sol chapter, I was like, this is cool, but it's
Feel like this was the
completely
best.
pointless. No, it's pointless. There's nothing of value happened during that chapter except getting Yuffie. That's the only thing that happened during that chapter that was worth it. So again, I don't think they nailed the pacing. I love the story. I love a lot of the mini games. I don't know if the open world is for me, but really, really good game at the end of the day. Kyle, want to share
Yeah.
your thoughts?
I don't disagree that there's some bloat. I do think that some of the mini games and some of the open world got maybe away from them a little. I think they might have done a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from someone who like 100%ed the first like 3 regions, and then after that I was like, all right, this is getting a little too much for me. But having said that, I do think some of the like standouts in the regions were always like the proto relic stuff.
Agreed.
Fort Condor especially is fantastic. I thought that was a lot of fun. As you said, Queen's Blood is great in terms of mini games. I didn't really care for a lot of the other ones. I didn't mind some of the ones in the Gold Saucer. I do want to say that I know you didn't. I don't know about Sam, but I played on graphics mode, and the frame rate didn't bother me. The frame rate I thought was fine, but it's just gorgeous in graphics mode. It looks beautiful, and I was willing to make that sacrifice. So I thought they did a great job making it look great. The combat was greatly improved. The synergy attacks and the team up attacks really made combat flow a lot better. The increased emphasis and ability to dodge attacks, like as Tifa, I was like dodging through the air like huge distances to get to enemies. I thought that was a lot better. So I think there's a lot of great things, especially near the end of the game. The story I've enjoyed the entire way through, but I will agree that there is some bloat. Overall, I did love this game. I thought this game was fantastic. But it definitely feels like the middle chapter.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's how I felt. Like, I think as an overall package, I like Rebirth more than Remake, but I think from a story perspective, Remake is still my preferred game, if that makes sense. So you were speaking of combat, which you both said vastly improved. What was your go-to parties when they didn't force you into like what were the characters you were like, I want to play as these? If you have a main, Sam, what was your lineup looking like?
So, context. I working on it for close to a month pre-release for IGN.
Wow.
we got the codes very, very early, which was a shock to basically everybody.
Yeah.
I, even with that time, I had to finish up Suicide Squad as well simultaneously. And I lagged behind, and I still didn't get the main walkthrough and all the boss guides and whatnot done prior to release. So I did realistically barrel my way through most of the game and didn't tackle too much of the actual tougher optional stuff off to the side. I did some side stuff in the first few regions, but didn't 100% anything. Barely touched the proto relics, although those that I did do, I thoroughly enjoyed. And so I got a bit of a truncated experience due to what my obligations were.
Sounds like you got the Kevin Ainsworth experience.
Amen. But that being said, and I'm also, again, not a massive Final Fantasy guy. I don't really know how to optimize these characters. A lot of the ATB stuff kind of gets away from me, but I managed to very easily get my way through. I always, where I could, stuck with Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa. When I first got Yuffie, I had her for a while. And she is, I would say, pretty close to busted in certain fights. But for the most part, I wanted to bolster my relationship with those two characters the most. So I just sort of automatically defaulted to them, and therefore, as you would expect, got a better understanding of their move sets and their attacks and what to use where. So those are the ones that I stuck with.
Kyle, I assume you had a very different party.
So I had Cloud because you have to, but I made Tifa the leader so that it automatically started me as Tifa in every fight. And then I had Aerith in there until I got Yuffie, and then it was Yuffie the entire way through. So it was Cloud, Tifa, and Yuffie. Yuffie is busted for some fights. She's really fun to play. But once again, if you know how to build her, Tifa is probably the strongest character in this game. And just like in Remake, Tifa was the strongest character in that game. And you can abuse the ATB and how fast she fights and how hard she hits. So it pretty much trivialized the game once you got the materia set up. And especially if you got some of her later moves off some of the weapons.
Yeah, I had a similar party to you. Obviously, Cloud, because you have to have Cloud. Even though if it was up to me, Cloud wouldn't be in my party, I don't think.
Same.
Especially, well, maybe for this game, but next game, he definitely would not be in the party. Like, once Vincent shows up, I was so mad he wasn't playable. I was like, I want Yuffie, I want Vincent.
It's like such a tease that they let you recruit Vincent right now, but then you can't even like use him or do anything. So
you're just chilling. He's always like, I'll stand here, arms folded, wait for you guys to get back. I'm like, but just come along. Just let's hang out. So I had Cloud, I had Yuffie, who was my main. I think Yuffie is, and I've said this since I played Intermission, the DLC. Like, Yuffie is what I was missing from Remake's combat. Like, I had so much fun in that DLC. I was like, I wish she was a playable character already. So I've been looking forward to her getting into the squad and being able to play. And then I had Aerith because I always like to have a healer. And I just like Aerith as a character. But
Cloud was my healer.
Cloud had healing abilities on mine as well, actually. But Yuffie at the end got an ability where I could siphon enemy health, so I didn't really need a healer. I was just stealing it from everyone. Especially that final fight, I was like, "I'll just take all your health."
Tifa can heal herself with chakra, so.
Oh, okay, yeah, but Yuffie gets some absolutely busted moves, as we've all said. Like, she can make a shadow clone of herself, so then you have two Yuffies, and then there were times where I would just chuck my giant weapon, and then I'd be off just smashing the square button, and like their health would be depleting in the corner, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is how we're doing. But yeah, I absolutely loved this game. And now you mentioned, Sam, that you did it because you wanted to build your relationships with Barrett and Tifa. And obviously the relationship mechanic is kind of is new-ish. Like the way they've implemented it, Rebirth is more fleshed out than what it was in Remake, where you got that one scene at the flower garden with whoever had the highest in Remake. This one, obviously, you get those little smiley faces above their heads, and side quests affect it, choices and dialogue affect it. And then it ultimately leads up to like who visits you during your gold saucer visits, right? With the date in
chapter 8 and then chapter
12. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sam, who was your gold saucer waifu? Who did you get to come visit you? Who'd you go on a date with?
So again, because I didn't get to do too much side stuff, it was skewed a little bit potentially from what I wanted. In chapter 8, it was Aerith.
Same.
And then 12 was Tifa. It wasn't the romantic version of the date though.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Chummy, huggy friend one.
Who, if you could have picked, who would you want to pair Cloud with?
Again, not being like overly attached to these characters like from the jump. It seems, and I think I'm making a fair assumption, that on the whole, typically, canonically, historically, whatever, Tifa is like the right choice.
Yeah.
So I leaned more towards wanting her, hence why she arrived in chapter 12. But I would have been fine with anybody, really. I think that from the discourse that we had amongst the people working on the game at IGN, they've done a good job of making all of the dates fun enough where I wouldn't have been bothered either way.
Kyle, I already know your answer, but why don't you tell me?
I simped Tifa the entire time. I went out of my way to make sure that Tifa showed up in chapter 8, and then I really went out of my way to make sure she showed up in chapter 12. I did every side quest. I even did like the Gold Cup Chocobo races where you have to win like the bronze, silver, and then win the Gold Cup with like the best Chocobo in the Gold Saucer just to get that extra boost for Tifa. So she was her whole circle was completely filled in. Whereas before I did the Chocobo race, everyone was kind of tied with one little space left, which I didn't know how I ended up in that situation because I was very mean to a lot of them. Like I told Barrett like he should grow onions because he cries a lot. And you know, I was putting people down. And they're all like, yeah, I'm into this. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? I'm being so mean to you, except Tifa. So I did get the romantic, intimate scene with Tifa in the Gold Saucer, which is the only romantic, intimate one where Cloud actually, like, they actually, like, kiss. It's not just, like, a hug or a kiss on the cheek or whatever. I mean, Tifa's the best. In terms of like the pairing, Tifa and Cloud is the best. And I never understood, and I haven't understood since the original, and I still don't understand anyone's like Cloud and Aerith. I'm like, well, one, Aerith is dead in the original. So, and two, Aerith and Zach. Like, why are you doing my boy like this?
Yeah. So I was very Cloud and Aerith. Like, let's push this. Then I played Crisis Core, and I love Zach, and realized no, Aerith's his girl. Like, I can't do this. Sorry, Cloud, I can't do this.
You made her all those flower cards.
I did. Yeah. So this game, listen, I know Tifa's probably the choice, but I'm a Yuffie stan these days, guys. I love Yuffie. I think she's hilarious. Shout out to Susie Young, the voice actor for Yuffie, who did an absolutely amazing job. She's also Chitose in Infinite Wealth. So two of my favorite characters this year have been from her. She's just so funny and enjoyable. And I had Aerith the first time Gold Saucer, like I said. And then I went to IGN.com and looked up one of their guides to show me what side quests are Yuffie's so I could max out Yuffie's bonds. Aerith was still right up there, even though just through dialogue choices, apparently, because I was like, I'm not trying to get you, but you like everything I say to you. Barrett hated me. His was like, I don't even know if we got out of the first smiley face category for Barrett. He really did not like me in this game. But I got Yuffie. Her date was very cute. She did just talk about how Tifa had a crush on Cloud, though. It was very like, oh, so I hear Tifa likes you. You like Tifa better? And then talking about how she wanted, or she had a crush on someone. Or she
Doesn't she do
kisses
the
Cloud
like
on the cheek.
tsundere thing at the end of the date where she's like, "Don't think that it means anything."
Yeah. It was
like,
very
yeah.
And nobody tell me the age difference. All right, it's just we're not worrying about that.
It's a fictional character.
Fictional character. That's right. So yeah, Yuffie was my main. I loved Yuffie in this game. Yuffie stan account, but we did have some. If we want to get into the actual story now and talk about the game, I think some of the right off the bat changes that maybe if you didn't play the original, you wouldn't know is like the way Yuffie's introduced to you is completely different than the original game.
Well, Yuffie's a completely optional character in the original game for anyone who isn't familiar. You don't have to, because you have to go out of your way to kind of encounter Yuffie. And then go to Wutai and everything. Like there's that whole section of the game isn't here. You can't go to Wutai in Rebirth. But they did make Wutai a bigger part of the story in Rebirth because they have the whole war starting and the whole Black Robes and Glenn situation going on.
Good old Glenn from Ever Crisis.
Yeah, Sephiroth is clearly like in control of Wutai in this. So those are some changes. I mean, Yuffie, I think it's great that Yuffie isn't optional. She's not missable anymore. I think the way that she's introduced is better. Like she cracks me up. Her and Barrett, I thought were hilarious this entire game.
Yeah, it was really funny. Did you know that, Sam? Did you know Yuffie was optional?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, so
Vincent was also optional.
Yeah, Vincent was optional. I believe he's in the same spot though, if I remember correctly. Like he's always been. Yes, he's always been in the
Shinra basement.
Yeah. Glenn, since you brought up Wutai, Glenn. What's his name? What's his last name, guys? Do you remember?
Glenn. It's Glenn
Lodbrok.
Lodbrok. Yeah.
He is from the mobile game. And I was like, when he first got introduced, I was like, who the hell is this character? Because I'm not out here playing the mobile games. For a minute, I was like, am I not remembering something from like intermission? Are we like, am I forgetting something? Nah. He's from the. I feel this game does some Kingdom Hearts nonsense. And if you know what that means, then you're familiar. But we have things like Glenn, and then we have some changes towards the end with Zack and Aerith that I was like, this is very Kingdom Hearts focused. But the main story for Rebirth is basically we're going to follow Sephiroth. That's it. That's the story.
Well, we're not even going to follow Sephiroth. We're going to follow the Black Robes, which we think will lead us to Sephiroth. And we're kind of following Cloud, who's maybe in the right mind, definitely isn't.
Can I say, and obviously this is a rhetorical, but why the hell would they let Cloud still be a part of that group after he had shown multiple times that he just like loses control and starts attacking them?
I don't know, man.
It's ridiculous.
Friends forever.
But like he almost like another change was when he attacks Tifa, right? In the Gungaga. That's how you say it.
When that happens at the reactor and he slash Tifa, and she like fell in. I was like, hold up. I was like, this is not a thing that happened. I'm like, what is this? And I got really nervous for a little bit. I was like, there's no. I'm like, did I bring this about because I like made Tifa like the main, like my main romantic choice? Like if I had chosen someone else, would you have done this to someone else? Like I got real skeptical, and then I was like, okay, no, she's good, but I was nervous there for a little bit.
I was like, oh, they're gonna kill Tifa instead of Aerith. Let's go. Like it's gonna be different. I thought this was
No,
like
let's not go.
I thought this was the change. It wasn't. I mean, it was a change, but it wasn't that change. But like when he slashes Tifa, because Sephiroth in his head is like, she's a fake. I killed her. And can I just say, I don't. You play in Japanese, Kyle. I don't know what you playing in, Sam. But the English voice actor for Sephiroth is the dude that plays Superman on the CW. And
is it?
Yeah, it is. I looked it up afterwards, and I was like, he does not sound the same. But he just spends the whole game whispering to Cloud. He's like, "I'm waiting for you, Cloud." I'm like, okay, all right, but like, what's going on? What's happening here?
Yeah.
All right. What else do we want to talk about? Wait, do you want to talk about more changes? Like I'm trying.
Yeah.
We'll save the biggest one for last. But
they added the whole section with the Gi village.
I was just gonna say, Sam, how'd you feel when Red 13 started talking like a child?
Oh my god,
trust me. There were many things in this game that threw me off. None hit me quite as hard. It was like, was I just imagining him being gruff for the first chunk of the game?
Hey guys,
why does he now sound like a teenager? I don't understand what's happening.
It's me. I'm home. I'm like, oh my god. Yes. But yeah, as you were saying, Kyle, about the
I mean, it ties in because you have to go to Red's village to get to the Gi village. And the Gi village, it was, I don't know, I didn't really need it. It was added, but it kind of just is like, hey, we made the black materia, like go get it for us. And then they're like, we're not giving it to them no matter what. And I was like, okay. I'm like, why did we have to come here again? Like, this didn't seem necessary, really. I mean, it was cool.
This was one of the parts I felt was a little. I get it was character growth for Red 13, but it went on a bit too long, especially when they were like, only you and Barrett can go into this cave. And I was like, this is my least favorite party composition. I don't want to do this again. We already did this earlier in the game. I think the changes are cool with the Gi where they're like, we created the black materia and like go get it for us. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. It gave it
more backstory and lore, which is nice. It wasn't so like, and it ties into like chapter 13, with some of the lore of the ancients and everything. But I'm not sure I really needed this change in section. I definitely didn't need to play as just Barrett and Red for a huge chunk of it again. I will say that my favorite party composition is anytime I had to play as Kate Sith.
I hate Kate Sith.
I don't hate him as a character.
No.
I hated playing as him though. It was awful.
Oh yeah. Worst gameplay, but also I don't, him and his little Scottish accent or whatever, like I can't.
Well, I played in Japanese, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
He's Scottish.
Why would he be Scottish? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
It's a talking robotic cat. None of it makes sense.
Oh, you don't like Kate Sith there?
I don't know that I don't like him. I just feel like, and allow me, he feels incredibly out of place to me compared to the rest of the party. He just seems like, I mean, I know that there's a talking dog thing, like I know that, but it just, I don't know. It's like you've got a group of badasses, and then you've just got a wind up toy next to them. That's very strange. I shouldn't be questioning it, but I did.
I will say I would have rather had them expand and give Kate more of a reason to join us than just being with us when we get the car and like tagging along, than dealing with a lot of the Barrett and Red stuff. I would rather traded off some of that.
It's pretty obvious, even if you haven't played the original game, that like Kate's gonna betray you at some point. Like he makes it pretty known. He's like, yeah, I work for Shinra. Like I'm a Gold Saucer employee. I'm literally only here because that's the way the game was written. Like I never felt they were so comfortable with him just like hanging out with them for no reason, and then suddenly they're like, he's cool, don't worry about it. I'm like,
they were also comfortable, like them as the developers, showing you the entire time that Shinra is keeping an eye on you the entire time. Like, oh hey, they know every move we're making and they know where we are. They have footage of us. Seems, a little suspicious. Yeah, I didn't think it was a big shock. I did think that his sacrifice was done pretty well. I thought that was a good scene. I do kind of wish that they had it immediately shown like, hey, I'm fine, I'm just a robot, so I'm okay again. Maybe let that linger a little bit more,
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. They're all like sad, and then he just pops out. He's like, "Hey guys."
Well, it went from sad to, hey guys, I'm fine again, to, oh crap, Sephiroth's here. What's Cloud doing?
Yeah. Sephiroth is kind of one of as I was alluding to, he's one of my big problems with this game, because like the way Remake ends, right? Like you fight Sephiroth and you're like, so like we're gonna chase after him. He's not really in the game that much. Like he shows up at the end and he's like, time for another boss battle. And I'm like, okay, but you haven't been here for the last 50 hours. You've just been in Cloud's head being like whispered and sweet nothings. I just really felt like he was underutilized, and I don't know what more they could have done, because like that is the game, that's Final Fantasy VII, but it just felt to me a little odd that like the big bad, they're like he's the big bad, but he wasn't really doing much throughout the game.
Well, I mean, Shinra is the big bad too. There's two big bads technically going on right now.
Rufus Shinra, dope character design, I'm gonna say right now.
But the most annoying boss fight in the game.
Oh yeah, 100%. Very frustrating. Frustrating. Should we talk about let's just talk about the major change.
I mean, they also changed Sid Highland's whole introduction.
Oh, Sid, I forgot about Sid. You
don't go to Rocket Town or whatever
to
meet him. Instead, you just send up like a fire and he flies and gets you. I do think his design is really good. I think all the designs are actually really good. But I liked him. I thought that he was a good character, and I liked the changes to being a pilot for hire.
I don't know if he's Southern in the English game. Like he's
what?
Like, yeah.
What is going on in this English dub?
He's got a Southern accent. Who's the dude that kidnaps you at the Gold Saucer and then you have to like go get the chocobo food? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if this is the case, but that dude sounded like Troy Baker to me. And I don't know if it was Troy Baker, but I was like, it sounds like Troy Baker from Death Stranding.
Oh, the like eccentric gang leader.
Yes, the eccentric gang leader.
Gus, what's his name?
Yeah, Gus.
Yep.
Now I have to know if he was in this game, because
wouldn't surprise me.
He is. It is Troy Baker.
Is it?
Yeah. There's also a random bartender that's definitely the voice of Ichiban from Like a Dragon. There's a lot of like voice talent in this game that for the English side especially. What's his name? John oh my god, I can't remember
I
his
don't
name.
know. I don't know.
Forget it. Yeah, Sid's cool. I like Sid. I just always forget he's an actual character that exists in this game.
Yeah.
All
He
right.
waits back for us at the ship / boat /
Can I say, guys?
train.
Sam, I don't know how do you like the boat? I found driving on the water to make me like a little sick because I felt like the screen wasn't like, it looked bad.
I thought that the adaptive triggers made the boat like hitch all the time, so I was constantly like stopping and starting, and I was like, "This is not done well."
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like I know that it's just a bit of fun, but I also found the whole flying the plane but not really flying the plane
pointless,
kind of redundant.
It's a loading screen that they're hiding, and
of course,
you can't convince me otherwise.
I put my controller down.
I'd much rather just have had like a scene of them all sitting inside the plane and doing stupid animations or something. But anyway, like the boat, I put it this way: I'm glad that the usage of the boat was pretty sparse. I'm glad that we didn't have to use it more than a couple of times, or at least I didn't, in terms of the content that I played through for the main story. So yeah, not great. Not great.
Yeah,
you do have to use it a bit more if you go and get the pirate stuff.
Yeah, that's something that's completely eluded me. Like, especially when you get towards the latter half of the game, I did really just have to like mainline it to get the coverage up. So there's probably a lot of stuff in the game that I just don't know exists.
All right, guys, let's talk about the biggest changes. Let's start with Zach. You immediately start playing as Zach right off the bat from this game.
Which wasn't in the demo.
Which wasn't in the demo. Great surprise, because people said like, oh, the demo is the opening of the game, right? So like I played it and I was like, oh, great, I've done chapter 1. And then you get the Zach version and I go, what's going on? This wasn't in the demo.
Because
such a pain in the ass. I'm sorry, but like, because I was playing the full game, I had to write up the demo walkthrough for IGN, and that meant that I had played through the start of the game, obviously, but then I then had to play through the demo separately to make sure that one, obviously the Zach section wasn't there, but two, that nothing in chapter 1 was omitted. It's a nice surprise, as you say, but like in terms of me for the coverage, it was so annoying. Such a time sink.
Because I played the demo like 2 days or so before the game came out, and they're like, oh, it's just the first chapter. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just hit start and I skipped right away, and then I am like, I'm Zach immediately, and I'm like, hold on. I'm like, what just happened?
I had to I went back to the main game.
So I quit the game, restarted it, watched this whole cutscene that wasn't in the demo, and I'm like, all right. I'm like, why'd you lie to me? I'm like, you made it seem like I could have just skipped and gone like past this, but I would have skipped this entire like cutscene and lost a lot of context. Very nice surprise though. I really liked that we were immediately thrown into like Zach's perspective, and
none of it made any sense off the start, because that's like, you think it's the end of Remake, but then like everyone's dead, and then you grab like you have Cloud for some reason, and I was like, okay, they're saying the reactor fell, which is the end of Remake, but also Zach is back with Cloud, which is the end of Crisis Core. And I'm like, I'm very confused about what's going on here, especially because like then it skips to Cloud telling his story, and I was like, they're all alive. But then like the more you go on throughout the game, you realize like, oh, Zach is in a different timeline, right? Like a different universe. And my initial thoughts, I don't know, I want to hear what Sam thought about this because obviously not knowing the Final Fantasy VII lore, but when like Briggs showed up, right? I was like, okay, so the whispers are gathering people from other timelines and putting them here. And then I was like, that's what's going on. And that's not what's going on at all. What'd you think when you were playing through the game as Zach Fair there, Sam?
Yeah, I again, like I say, I only really had the very, very basics on Zach as a character and the context behind him. I don't know. I found that whilst the segments that you're playing as Zach are pretty basic for the most part, the narrative nuggets that you gain from it are probably the most interesting parts of the game to me. I think that, you know, the especially towards the end as things start ratcheting up and you see him in the whatever reactor they're attacking, him talking to Biggs, and things are starting to like converge more and more. I'm totally on the multiverse wave, just in media in general, whether it's Marvel or whether it's everything everywhere all at once or whatever. So to see that replicated here and to have Zach sort of be a bit of a vessel to funnel the player through and to gain little tidbits of information here and there, I think is frustrating but equally enrapturing and engaging. I found myself most intrigued by his segments. Yeah, I don't really know, again, not really fully understanding or knowing where the story is going. I'm interested to see just what kind of a role he plays going forwards. Because again, you know, we are in spoiler territory. In the final battle with Sephiroth, the timelines converge properly and they fight essentially side by side, so to speak. But then they get separated again. Are we looking at a third game to end the trilogy where things properly just mash together and you are seeing crossovers to a much greater extent and what that means? Are we going to see multiple versions of the same characters fighting alongside each other? I don't know, but I think that having Zach being part of this dying world, this timeline that's ending, not because of the meteor, interestingly, you know, I would have thought that it's just the same kind of cataclysmic event is happening, but it's just because the Mako has dried up on his world. Again, heavy environmental themes, which is what Final Fantasy VII has always been about. I liked it. I liked the perspective that he brought to the game. I think that of all the things that they're seemingly diverging away from the original with, I think that Zach offers the most compelling stuff.
I agree. Zach is one of my biggest like positives of this game after like, you know, loving him in Crisis Core and then playing him in this. I'm itching for more Zach. And I really hope he's like a bigger part of the next game. So when I played the ending, I actually didn't catch how many different timelines we were actually seeing. I had to talk to Kyle and he was like, yeah, there's four. There's 4 timelines in that ending. Because in my mind, I was like, how is Zach at the reactor, at the Shinra headquarters, not at either, and then Sephiroth's walking into the church behind? Like, how is all this happening concurrently? Like, I thought maybe it was like flashbacks. He did it all somehow, and the was like, no, like, what was it, Kyle? What's the key?
Anytime you see Shinra's mascot Stamp, he's different in every single timeline.
Yeah.
And like you could see him on the candy where Cloud and Aerith when that timeline, you could see him outside the church. You could see him on the bag of chips that Biggs is eating. So anytime that you saw a different version of Stamp, it was a different timeline variation. That and the rainbow color, like different, like when that happened, it was a differentiation in the timeline.
So I'm with Sam. Like, so what I expected when Remake ended, I thought some of the changes that were going to happen for Rebirth, like I assumed the Biggs we saw in the bed at the end was our Biggs, and like, oh, he's alive, and then you see Jesse's headband. I was like, Jesse's alive too. Like, I assumed these characters were alive in our like the Cloud timeline with the party, and then turns out like, oh no, Jesse still died. Like Biggs, that was a different timeline. Zach's a different timeline. And then what I think is super interesting about like what is happening to Zach is that in the majority of the timelines we saw, he still gets gunned down by Shinra soldiers as he's supposed to in Crisis Core. So I think it's supposed to give you that sense of, well, can Zach even escape his fate? Like, because at the end, one of his last lines was like, oh, like our worlds came together. He's like, I wonder if they can do it again or something. Like he's like, really, I'm gonna go. And that's Zach's English voice, kind of in case, you know, he's really upbeat and chipper and like,
yeah, I know, I've heard it.
So is he going to try to, he's obviously going to try to bring the timelines together and maybe like, oh, like an Aerith from this timeline is now like going to replace that, whatever. But is he ultimately going to die still? Which would like, I think would be heartbreaking. Like, don't do it to me. Like, let him be happy in one timeline.
I'm like torn. I think there is something that would be nice about a timeline where Aerith and Zach get to like live and be happy. And it would kind of go against the like fate being predetermined theme that they have, which is shown when Zach always gets gunned down by Shinra. It's shown where in every timeline that you see, Sephiroth always comes for Aerith, whether it was her in the church when she sends Cloud back and he comes behind her, or in the main timeline from the OG where he stabs her through the stomach, or even in this one where Cloud saves her but actually fails because
they got me so good. I was so
everything's
mad.
coming together. Oh my god, yeah. Kevin, I had already beaten the game, and Kevin like texted me. He's like, let's go, Cloud saved her, and he's like, wait, what? She's dead? And I'm like, yeah.
I was so mad.
Oh, they got you good. But I do think there would be something nice about that, but I don't know how they would do it in a way that people would be okay with, because like Aerith dying is almost the video game equivalent of the Darth Vader scene in Star Wars, like being Luke's father. Like,
I've said that to multiple people, and Sam, you knew about that, right? Like you knew Aerith died in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
that's like a pop culture reference. And when I tell that to people, they say, "No, it isn't." And I go, "I don't understand how you've gone 26 years without hearing that."
I just don't. Yeah, I don't know how you could be playing games for any reasonable amount of time and not have heard that at some point. Especially if you know who Sephiroth is, and like Sephiroth is like one of the most iconic villains in any game. Like he's so famous that like when One Winged Angels plays, people are like, oh well, Sephiroth's coming in some way. So I don't know. I hope that they can find a way. I do think that I want more Zach going forward. I think it would be interesting to see how he reacts if he comes over to like Cloud and them and Aerith is still dead. Like I'd like to see that dynamic. Like, does Zach get mad at Cloud for failing to save her? Like, what is his response? I do also wants more, like, I don't know. It wasn't really ever like explained, but why did Marlene have visions of Aerith dying? Like,
Well, they just
yeah, she's
disappear after that, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, all those like a bunch of timelines clearly are getting wiped out constantly. Like, you know, Sephiroth's whole thing in the original, he wants to become one with the life stream, become a god, and destroy the world with the meteor. And Aerith uses her white materia to use holy to save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is kept in the themes and like the overall story of Rebirth. But as the like director explained in Remake, anytime the Whispers touched Aerith in Remake, they like took some from memories.
Yeah, because the white
And that's-
materia is different in
Yeah,
this
that's-
time. Like when they were in Midgar, the white materia was full, and that's how she knew her future. Like that's how she was.
But Red also knew the future.
Yeah, I don't know.
Midgar.
I don't know about him. He's a weirdo. But now it's just a clear circle, right? So like it's not holy in this one.
And neither of them knew it. But then at the end, Cloud has her materia, and like her, I don't know, her memory for him is like his memory of her is like in it because he can still like see and talk to her and stuff.
And he can also see the big crack in the sky.
And he can see the crack in the sky, and everyone's like, "What are you talking about, bro? The beautiful sunny day."
Interesting. Like I don't know. It almost sounds as if my assumptions of the ending are slightly different to yours. My assumption was because Cloud, obviously, as Sephiroth goes to kill Aerith, he does block the sword, and the sword gets flung off into the background. But as they're having that struggle, you see like the rainbow colors coming, and after the sword pings off, after Masamune pings off, and lands nearby, the glitch happens, and then you see the blood come and Aerith having been stabbed. My assumption, and I could be completely wrong, but going off of like the clues that the game provided, not necessarily that they are clues, but what I picked up on for the final fight with the timelines and Cloud and Zack sort of converging together and fighting, and then Cloud being able to not only see and speak to Aerith, but see the crack in the sky. My assumption was that him blocking the sword and saving Aerith does happen, but it's almost like, I don't know whether this makes sense to either of you two, but like the things going on with Marvel at the minute is like a canon event.
Yeah, it has to happen. Yeah.
So my assumption was that Aerith dying, sort of like what we said in terms of like a big pop culture reference. Everybody knows it's meant to happen, and it does happen. But Cloud in that moment makes a reality where it doesn't happen. And my assumption is that from that point forward, Cloud almost like is simultaneously existing on two different timelines. So he's experiencing two timelines simultaneously. So the one where Aerith dies, and then the one where he still speaks to this other Aerith, who I don't see as like this ghost spectral vision. I see her as an actual alternate version of Aerith that is in her world speaking to Cloud in the same way she does when she brings him over. But
the thing that I will say that kind of goes against that is in the final fight with Sephiroth, where Aerith joins you. If she joins, and the effect is the life stream effect, and what happens is that when Aerith dies, she becomes one with the life stream, and she uses the life stream in Holy to protect the world from the meteor, which is what she's referring to at the end when she talks to him, and it's why she can't like leave that place with them at the end, and she says goodbye. So I was taking it. When he's after he blocks the sword and he's having his like, you know, like mental freakouts where it's going back and forth, I did take that as he's having a hard time distinguishing between two realities, one where he blocks the sword and the actual one where she dies. But everyone else sees reality as it is, because it happens. She dies. And then in the final fight, she's one with the live stream. That's how she's able to join you. That's why she fades away at the end after they beat her and says, let's go join them. That's why everyone's sad, can't see her and everything. He can only see her because he has the materia still.
Interesting. Okay.
And Red can sense her somehow.
Yes, and Red can sense her somehow too. And that might have to go with the experiments and why he was able to see the future to begin with in Remake.
I really so Cloud has the black materia too.
Yes,
he puts it in his Buster Sword, even though it wasn't the sword I had at the end of the game. But he puts it in his Buster Sword. I don't know what's gonna happen there. Obviously, Sephiroth still wants it. Aerith still promises to stop Meteor from within the life stream, which is what she does in the first one. I don't know how she's gonna do that without her materia in this one, but it's what she's gonna do apparently. What you wanted to say, son?
Sam, well, I didn't want to spoil anything. Sam, do you know why Cloud? Do you know what happened to Cloud? Do you know what his issue is? Why his memories are the way they are?
Do you know why he thinks? You know why he told his retelling in chapter 1, and Tifa goes, "As far as I know, Cloud wasn't in Nibelheim."
Yeah.
I've looked it up since.
Okay.
So my understanding is, and give me a second, is that so Cloud wasn't ever a soldier, and the Hojo experiments on both Cloud and Zack.
Yes. For 5 years.
And when Zack dies, Cloud sort of goes through I don't know what you'd say, like a identity crisis kind of thing, and just basically builds a different character for himself based on Zack.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So he essentially is Zack's memory. So everything that he was saying that he did with Sephiroth, Zack was doing with Sephiroth. Cloud was in Nibelheim though, because he was the soldier under the mask that got swept up. So when he had those visions, he's like, Zack, he's like, he went down the river. I'm like, you're getting closer, buddy. We're getting there. All right.
You're almost there.
That's why I tell everyone, you should ideally to play Rebirth. And I know, Sam, you were saying they made it easier for newcomers, but you really need OG Final Fantasy VII. You need Crisis Core and then Remake, I think, to get the entire full picture, because I know plenty of people out there who haven't played Crisis Core, and I always I want to talk to them about Cloud's memories and Zack, but they don't have any context. And I don't want to be the person that ruins it for them. I assume the people listening to this spoiler cast are those people that are I know everything, but I will, I'll put a little timestamp that we spoil Crisis Core.
Wait, do you know what exactly the experiment the Hojo did on Cloud is?
Now, see, that might... unless Sam knows, but
I think I know.
Okay,
what is it?
I'm gonna put spoiler tag on this.
Okay. Yeah, we'll spoiler tag this whole section.
It's if I remember correctly, it's that they were infused with what make up Mako, but also some bits of Genova.
Yeah.
Sephiroth. Yeah, that's why Sephiroth can do all the things he does to Cloud, basically.
That's also why you see the black robe people, right? Those are soldier, Sephiroth clones and soldier failed experiment.
Because
Like
you see
Roche.
Hojo doing it to Roach, yeah.
Which R.I.P. my guy, R.I.P. in peace. You know what I'm saying?
My friend.
Yo, I loved him. Like, I'm so glad we didn't have to do the stupid like on the bike fighting against him in this one.
I'm glad.
But I actually liked him a lot. Like, he was always. I was like, I feel like they are friends. I feel like Cloud kind of came around.
In the end, he's like, I
don't think Cloud wanted him to become that. You know.
I don't think he overly cared that much, though.
Yeah, so Rebirth definitely has a sense of like fighting against destiny mantra. I'm really interested to see where they go for the third one as we wrap it up here for our discussion, because like as Sam was saying, like I assume we get converging timelines. I really want to see Zach with the main party and just like have those sort of interactions, although now this is like pie in the sky stuff, because that would be like crazy deviations. You would have to change the entire part of the adaptation, right? Like that, it would no longer be a remake. This, like the third part, could go way off the walls if they want to just keep it kind of the same for Rebirth and have like the big story beats with some changes, and then maybe Zach's doing his thing in the background. Maybe that's more realistic. But I'm at the point where I'm like, go throw it at the wall and let's just go. Let's just get crazy with it.
You'd assume they're going to.
I hope, because that's what I thought Rebirth was going to be, and then it wasn't.
Yeah. I would like them to narrow the focus back a little from the huge open world, and I kind of think they have to going into the third act, just because it is a smaller section. I'm curious if they're just going to cut. See, I think they're going to cut Wu-Tai, like go into Wu-Tai completely. I think that's why
they can with the war.
I think that's why they gave you Yuffie in the way they did. I think they're going to start the next game, because they said they're going north. I think they're going to start in the like snow cabin at like the Great Glacier. And I think we're just going to pick up from there. And I don't think, because Wu-Tai isn't north, so it wouldn't make sense to go to Wu-Tai. But I don't know. I'm interested. I think narrowing the focus back a little bit from the huge open world is needed, though.
Mm-hmm. They need to do what they need to nail is the final boss. Like Sephiroth, I assume, is going to be the final boss again. But they really need to make like that fight be special, because we've already fought him twice now, right? Like I've already whooped him up and down this multiverse. We need to do something.
No, you
big.
Lost once.
I did. Yo, okay, you had to bring it up. So in the final part of the final boss for Rebirth, where it's Cloud and Aerith, I died when he had like a sliver of health left, and then the retry button is not very clear in Rebirth, because it's like retry battle, and then it gives you like 4 options, and I chose retry from before this fight, and I assumed that would be like this fight, but no, I had to redo the whole final 30. Like I added like 40 minutes to my play time because I had to redo the whole thing. Also, shout out to that final fight, because it changes your party composition based on your relationship.
Yep.
Yeah. And I only know that because I was looking at IGN how to beat the one where it's like his wings change color. Because I was like, how do you break this stupid core? And it was like, all right, so what you want to do is you have Barrett, Red, and Yuffie. I was like, I do not have Yuffie here. If I had Yuffie here, I'd be whooping this dude. I got teeth.
See, I had Red and Yuffie there. So I was like, once I learned that's what you had to do, I was like, okay, Yuffie's gonna come in clutch right now.
Yeah, Yuffie would have been great. I would have just thrown my thing at the wings, and instead I'm sitting there with Tifa shooting the freaking fire and wild. Oh, it took forever. It was so bad because I didn't focus on magic at all in this game.
Well,
I will say, like, talking about the Aerith's death kind of being the big pop culture zeitgeist moment. I think now that they're past that, which is like the defining thing of Final Fantasy VII, I think they've got that out of the way. It's in the bag. It's done. And I think that whilst I'm sure it will ultimately kind of wrap up in a similar fashion, I think that they've got the touchstone for Final Fantasy VII done, and they've done it in a way where there's minor little deviations here and there and allusions to things happening maybe in the future, but they've made sure that they've got it so that they don't piss off any fans that actually wanted it to stay relatively close. And now that they've got that and they're past it, I hope that the floodgates can kind of really open up, because my knowledge of Final Fantasy VII post Aerith dying completely drops off, outside of very, very specific. So time will tell. But I am excited.
I want him to not be afraid. Take some chances, make some big changes. A part of me was when Cloud was raising his like sword up. I was like, oh, like, are they gonna make Cloud do it? I was like, that'd be a big.
I would have turned my PlayStation off.
Yeah, but come on, like the guts to have somebody make that change would have been something. I mean, it would have been hated. People would have hated it. But
just cutting her in half from the front. That is, I mean, that would be really brutal.
Straight down the center, split in half,
blood everywhere. 4K. Falling. You know, you play Dead Space. Aerith's body.
Barrett and Tifa, they're in tears. They're like, oh my god,
what have you done? Yeah. No. All right. Well, I think that's gonna do it for our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth spoiler cast. Any closing remarks that anyone wants to make before we get on out of here?
I will say, obviously, I've said I wasn't a big fan of Remake. Rebirth has convinced me to go back and just see it through. Like, even if I don't click with it, I'm going to go and see it through, make sure I've got all of the context from at least this remake trilogy. And I am actively looking forward to the third game, whatever they call it, and whenever it comes out.
Play the Yuffie DLC too, because
I will. Yes.
What her trial when they had and they all go to their own individual trials. I was like, if you didn't play the Yuffie DLC, you have no idea who this dude is.
Completely off my head.
Yeah. So everyone go do that. Kyle, any closing remarks?
Tifa's best girl.
Amen.
Okay. Well, that'll do it.
Despite what Kevin says, the Costa del Sol chapter, goated. Goated.
I wonder why.
It was, I wonder why.
I wonder why.
I just really I liked the Running Wild mini game. Is really what it was.
I hated that mini game. I
hated it too. It's the worst mini game ever. Like kicking the balls in the nets. I was like, this could have been cool, but I don't need 3 minutes of this.
The only thing I hated more was finding those stupid things you had to take pictures of. The cacti. I don't know if you did that one.
Oh, I did that one. Yeah.
Oh, I hated it. I hated
the fire hydrant one. Whoa.
Oh yeah, the fire hydrant one took me for. That was the one.
Little picture, yeah.
You know, one that actually I was embarrassed. The one that was like painted on a giant like wall.
On the billboard?
Yeah, we had to look up. I'm like, where is this thing? And then I just like
look up.
Gamers. I don't look up in most games. Yeah, that's true. All right, guys. Well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If you let us know your thoughts down below. Let us know where you think they're going. Until next time, on behalf of everyone at Saving Game Media, goodbye.